Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome back to the Sinquefield Cup in 2022. So we're following now the round 6 of the super event and we're following now the derby of the day, which is now the beautiful game between Hans Niemann and Wesley. So far it has been a great tournament for both of them. Hans Niemann played this beautiful game against Shakhrin Mamedjadov where he won in a beautiful tactical way, but also he had this beautiful win with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen, which unfortunately became a controversial game. I'm really sad that it happened. It was really unnecessary what happened in the chess community. So it was still a great game, I think, by Hans Niemann. And also Wesley So played really brilliant tournament so far. He had this beautiful win against Fabiano Caruana. In my opinion, this Wesley So versus Fabiano game was one of the best games of this event so far. And I've been asked now many times by many of my viewers to give some comments about this current chess drama that's going on now between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann. I would not love to do that, because if you have followed my chess channel, you can say, of course, you're a bad chess channel, you're a good chess channel. But if you have followed my chess channel was never about any drama. We are analyzing here some top engine games. I like to see how Stockfish is making progress in particular openings, the particular silence of openings. I like to follow current tournaments. When I come home from my work, I just like to analyze some games. I like to see the beauty played by top grandmasters. I like to analyze some deep ideas of particular openings. I like to see new opportunities. I like to see these basics in chess. If you have followed, we have covered about 200 videos about the basics in chess. So these were the things that I really cared about. I really didn't care so much what is going on in the chess community, because it can be simply too much for my taste. First of all, when you think about this drama now, there are only two possible truths, and this is the only thing that I will say about this matter. There are only two possible truths. One truth is possible, just possible, I'm saying, is that maybe Hans Niemann cheated, and the other possible truth is that Magnus Carlsen overreacted and destroyed almost some more social life. So both of the truths are quite stunning to me. This is simply too much for my taste. I have enough drama in my life. I'm a police officer and I'm a married man, so believe me, I don't need any drama about anything. So as I said, this makes me really relax when I analyze some games at home, when I share with you some ideas that I think are important about chess. So as I said, this will not be and was never about chess drama here on my YouTube chess channel. So let's see now what happened. Here we have Hans Niemann versus Wesley. So important game, as I said. Who wins now this one has a good chance now to win the whole thing. So here Hans opened with the move e4. We have e5 by Wesley. So knight to f3, we have knight to f6, we have the Russian game, the Petrov defense is on the board. So knight takes e5, we have d6, knight to f3, knight to e4, d4 and d5. This becomes now the standard setup of the Petrov defense. So pardon me. After move d5, we have now this classical attack with bishop to d3, bishop to f5. So you see in the beginning, Wesley So is keeping now simply good progress around the square e4, so he cemented his position around one single square. So we have now kingside castling, bishop to e7, rook to e1, and also kingside castling. Knight from b to d2. Here Hans Niemann challenged now the knight in the center of the board, and here we have a very interesting continuation, knight to d6, and this is now one of the best ways here to proceed. We're giving up, of course, here from black's perspective, our powerful bishop on f5, but we're trading it off also for a very powerful piece of white, because white's minor piece, the light square bishop on d3, is actually the best minor piece of white. So that's why giving up here a very important bishop yourself for a very powerful bishop for opponents, I think it's a good trade of pieces. And now after move knight to f1, here we have c6. So you see, we're simply keeping the position here very compact on light squares. Now we want to try, of course, some ideas of knight to d7, knight to f6, and basically in many occasions this is just a drawish position. The Petrov defense, I think you use if you want to have a drawish setup in an early stage of the game, if you don't want to complicate things too much, because of the fact that the pawn structure is quite symmetrical. So we have here a 4 versus 4 situation, so no pawn breakthroughs are possible. Even if you try some ideas of c4 or maybe c5, you always have the opportunity to maybe risk an isolated pawn here. If after d takes c4, if you just rush into the attack, then you could be left maybe with an isolated d4 pawn. So that's why this position is quite stacked static in the center of the board, no pawn breakthroughs are possible. So you're just searching first for improvements of your minor pieces, then maybe in the later stage of the game you have opportunities to break and enter. But so far, as I said, in my opinion, the Petrov defense is really quite a drawish opening. So here in the continuation, bishop to f4, we have bishop takes d3, queen to d3. After a couple of trades of pieces, the queen is also out, and so far white has also good development. The rooks are connected, so white is slightly faster in development. So in the continuation, we have knight to a6, we have knight to e3, and now knight to c7. Knight to b4 is not good. You get one tempo, but this is silly because you get queen to b3, and how are you going to protect now? The b7 will simply take out the knight, then afterwards the pawn. You have to react a3, even if you play knight to a6. As I said, bishop takes d6 followed with queen takes b7 is quite risky here. So you got your tempo against the queen on d3, you got your fun, but actually it's a bad move here by black. So that's why after move knight to e3, we have here knight to c7 by Wesley. So he's trying now to reroute the knight on a very good square. There is now a beautiful maneuver that you can use, knight to e6, maybe then g6, and then knight to g7, knight to f5. Both of these knights are controlling the f5 square, and then from that square you can maybe include some other pieces into the attack. So now I think here Wesley searched for a beautiful square for the f5 square. So in the continuation, we have now b3, knight to e6, we have bishop to e5, knight to e4. Here's Wesley cements again the knight on a beautiful square, on the centralized square, and now comes c4. As I said, this is very risky what Hans Niemann is doing, because okay, you are attacking, but pushing pawns in this static center setups, in this symmetrical setups, is actually not doing anything. Even if you take here d takes c4, then you risk to have this hanging pawn structure, which can be also, if you have maybe the c4 d4 connected, they can be also attacked by the minor pieces. So pushing pawns is quite risky here. I like maybe here more ideas just to include some other rook in this other rook into the game, maybe search for opportunities, knight to d2 f3, just kicking away this knight from this very important square. The problem about c4 is that actually here Wesley had also already very interesting opportunity to make the game complicated. He had the opportunity here to play a beautiful bishop to b4 move. Now the rook is hanging, you have to play something like rook from e to d1, and now with f6 we just kick away the bishop to g3. Look at this, you can maybe kick away the bishop with after queen to d7. This would be then the move here by black. So we're simply improving the position of the queen. Now after something like a3, we just play bishop to e7, c takes d5, c takes d5. And I think when we watch now this position, this is quite interesting for black, especially. We can take over now on the c file. The knight is cemented, the knight can always kick away here, the bishop can take it out here on g3, and still there are opportunities. Maybe, as we said, this idea is again working, g6, knight to g7, knight to f5 are opportunities. So quite an interesting game. Bishop to b4 was here really a beautiful opportunity for Wesley. So, but he played knight to f6, retreated with the knight. He didn't have to do that, of course. This was really unnecessary move, and this was maybe his first inaccurate move, but nothing special still going on, because this is not a dynamic game, this is not a tactical game so far. So rook from a to d1, we have g6 now with this idea maybe to reroute the knight. We have now g3, and this move again was very risky because you are taking now a very important square for the bishop. The bishop is now a little bit loose on the board. It can be in some occasions even trapped with knight to d7. f6 is then very risky, so you have to be careful. g3 is taking simply a square of the dark square bishop. So we have now a6, rook to e2. Here Hans Niemann played, I think, a good move. He is trying now to maybe connect the rooks on the e file. That's now the only open file, so he's trying now to build a battery here on this open file. So in the continuation, rook to e8 played by Wesley. So he is now competing on the e file against this rook on e2. We have now h4, and this was also quite risky here by Hans Niemann. This is okay, it's not losing here immediately for white just because you play h4, but again really unnecessary. You can just continue with your build up here. I think with rook to e1, no hurries I think are possible here, because with h4 you are further weakening your pawn structure in front of the king. This was quite risky, but as we said, after move h4 here Wesley so realized his opportunities, because probably Hans Niemann hoped also in some occasions for some ideas of g4 to just push the pawn further, but look at this now, both of these knights are very dangerous around the square f4. So far Wesley played a really brilliant defense here. So in the continuation we have now c takes d5. The problem is now if you play rook to e1, look at this, if you build now finally the e file battery, then we play simply this one. As we said, it seemed to me that this bishop is simply too loose on the board, so this was, I think, risky what Hans Niemann played here already. It was a good position for Wesley. So but okay, after move knight to h5, so here c takes d5 was played, we have c takes d5, and now comes one of the critical moments of this particular game. So as we said, g4 is not possible here, you get knight to f4, so you lose simply the exchange, knight takes f4, then you lose the rook of course here on e2. But the only progress I think that you can make here in the continuation, Hans Niemann played knight to g2, he controlled further here the f4 square, but this was actually a mistake that he played. Again, his bishop is simply trapped here, the bishop is simply loose on the board. There is only one good move, believe me or not, here. Instead of this move knight to g2, after c takes d5, the only good move that Hans Niemann should have played is here b4. b4 is really hard to find. This is really brutal idea, because now if you get f6, then we have this beautiful tactical shot, queen to b3. You can actually even allow your opponent to capture the bishop after f takes e5. Now we play knight takes d5 first, and look at this, the queen is lined up here against the king. You have to step back, you have to play with your king here on g7, and now we simply take out one pawn. Now you see the knight is a little bit loose here on e6, then maybe afterwards we can push the pawn on g4. So far it's a bad game here than for black. So although look at this, white is down a piece but has now a brilliant activity here, especially also of course by the rook here on the d file. The queen is also a little bit endangered. So knight to g2 was the mistake here by Hans Niemann, because he went into unfortunate tactical sequence that he had to accept. Now Wesley so played a brilliant move f6, and look at this. Okay, Hans Niemann had this opportunity to play bishop to b8, which he played. Now the knight is also hanging, but what probably Hans Niemann missed here is actually that here Wesley so doesn't have to take the bishop on b8. Then of course white will simply take out the knight, and this is playable for both sides. Then we'll simply play again rook to e1, and we'll again build this battery. The queen is perfectly fine, the knights are perfectly fine here in the center of the board, so this should be an equal position. But after move bishop to b8, here Wesley so didn't react, he just continues this pressure, and he's saying, okay, I'll just protect my knight, I don't have to play this wild tactical sequence, and still the bishop is almost sort of trapped here. So in the continuation we have now g4, now we have queen takes b8. Okay, you take a pawn here on h5, but now with knight to f4, look at this, we have this sort of fork against the knight and the queen. Now we have to take knight to f4, queen takes f4. So as I said, this moves that Hans Niemann played led into an unfortunate tactical sequence for him. Now after move queen to f4, we have h takes g6, we have h takes g6, and now look at this, this is a much better position for black. Black has a healthier pawn structure, so we have two connected pawns in front of the king. White's pawns are here isolated, they're disconnected, these are weaknesses. The queen is very active, and look at this, this bishop is coming into the game. f5 is going to happen, bishop to d6 with some nasty batteries here is going to happen. So much better position, unfortunately, now for Hans Niemann. So really he went into this tactical line. He didn't have to do that, he had good chances in the game, but now after h takes d6, okay, we have this idea again, rook to e1, but now bishop to d6 here. Wesley so is just continues his pressure. We have rook to e8, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, we have queen to g4, first king to f1, and now after king to e8. So we have reached now an endgame stage in which black is of course the bishop on the board, but still you have to play, I think, here top I don't know, stoffish moves just in order to make a draw here, because these are such weak pawns. They can be always attacked by the queen, by the bishop. Look at this, these pawns are also on dark squares. If these pawns would be on light squares, then of course they could not be attacked by the dark square bishop, but now all of these pawns are just simply targets for black's pieces. So something went wrong here in Hans Niemann's game for sure. So a4, we have king to f7, now we have queen to e3, and now we have bishop to f4, attacking simply now the queen. Although here already an interesting idea is just to play bishop to b4, simply taking over here on this diagonal. And I wanted to show what's the actual goal of blacks here, because still, of course, we have a feeling sort of that black should be better here, but how to actually win this game, how to make progress here. Actually, the most important tactical idea about, for instance, if the game would be like this, is to play queen to e4. That's the only move that makes progress here. After potential, I don't know, let's see, play queen to e4, then we play d takes e4, and look at this, we have connected now 3 pawns, so we don't have even now this isolated pawn. Now this is still a weakness, this is a weakness, the knight has to move, we'll connect the pawns and just include our king into the game and simply attack this pawn. So this is the actual goal, to let this pawn roll here to e4 and then connect it with f5. There are maybe some other, after bishop to b4, you can play king to e2, but again, here look at this, bishop to a5, queen to d3, king to e6, king to e3, and now again we just reroute the bishop. You can play something like this, but actually, as we said, queen to e4 is always the tactical goal. You should not forget about this, because a similar thing will happen in a different line, of course, in a similar way. So here in the continuation, as we said, bishop to f4 was played by Wesley instead of this move bishop to b4. We have queen to d3, queen to h3, couple of checks we have here by Wesley, king to f1, and now again this motif, queen to e4. So this is now the only progress that you can make. We have here queen to h3, rook move queen to a4, pardon me, we have queen to c3. So here Hans Niemann realized his tactical problems. If he takes, then the knight is attacked. As we said, black will simply connect the pawn structure. So here in continuation, we have bishop to d6, we have king to g2, and now again a couple of checks. We have knight to g1. This was a tricky move here by Hans Niemann. After move knight to g1, he left actually the protection of the h4 pawn, but this is not working. If you take here queen to h4, the problem is now the queen is not covering the c8 square anymore, and now the queen is coming into the game. You have lost one pawn, but actually the knight is perfectly fine. The knight is protecting very well the king, so no checks by the queen are possible. You could maybe take out the pawn here, but now we take also this one, and as I said, again, this should be a drawish position. So this was the only trick sort of here by Hans Niemann. He left the defense of the pawn, is hoping now that Wesley simply steps back from this diagonal. So we have now queen to f5, we have queen to e3, again this motif, queen to e4, just hoping for the trades of queens. We have queen to king to e2, bishop to h2, attacking now the knight to f3, and now after bishop to f4, this is now simply a disaster for white. Now you have to react here. The queen is hanging, you cannot move the queen. So now in the continuation, we have queen to e4, now comes d takes e4, and basically the game was like Wesley so hoped that the progress will happen, because now we have this idea, we're kicking away the knight, and we have now this 3 connected pawns. So it's now completely winning endgame here for black. So we have knight to e1, king to e6, so now the king is marching towards the center, knight to g2, bishop to b8, knight to e3, and now this bishop is simply attacking this weak pawn. Here in the continuation, d5 was played by Hans Niemann, but nothing special here. Wesley just played king to d6. We have knight to g2, and now king to e5. Again, a trick here by Hans Niemann. If you play, of course, king to d5, then you get knight to f4, and then we'll take out this one. But Wesley kept it calm here. He played first the move king to e5, d6. Now he simply took knight to f4, and now a beautiful move here by Wesley, g5, h takes g5, h takes g5. So here Wesley got challenged with the move knight to h3, but still Hans Niemann cannot take the pawn, because here simply the knight gets attacked, and now this knight is far away from the action, has to play now here on g5. But it gives now the opportunity, of course, for Wesley to centralize the king, and here It's a disaster, as we said, for white. Black is up a pawn, has now the bishop, which is still a very active piece. We have here some opportunities maybe to take out even this one. The knight is too far away from the action. When we have both pawns on both sides, then of course you want to have the bishop, because the bishop is a long range piece, so it can always be active on both sides. The knight needs too much time just in order to get some activities here on the queen side. So this is now completely winning, as I said, for Wesley. So knight to f7, okay, it's one check, nothing special. King to f4, we have king to f1, bishop to b6, not allowing this knight to come. Maybe here on d8 we have knight to d6, attacking now the pawn on b7, but now king to f3. Very nice move here by Wesley. So he's trying now to take out this pawn. He leaves actually this pawn, but it would be simply too slow. If you take out this one, then we simply take bishop to f2, and now the problem is now you get even checkmated. You get some ideas of g3 and then followed with g2. There's no counterplay about this idea, so this is not working. So after move king to f3, we have here now knight to c4 by Hans Niemann, and maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for black. It's the winning immediately, so test your might in chess. Try to see now really the winning tactical sequence. Okay, Wesley so found a beautiful bishop to f2, because of course what to do here. You have to play here knight to d2. Of course the pawn is hanging, but look at this now. King to f4 is deflecting the king, of course, from the defense of the bishop. But the problem is now, even if you take king to f2, you get e3 and you get the fork, and this is again completely winning. So probably Hans Niemann hoped for this idea to get maybe the knight at d2, but after king to f4, actually in this position Hans Niemann resides. So as I said, if you take, you just get the fork. You maybe can play this one with takeout, but now the king is simply too far away from the action, so it's game over. So really wild game. Hans Niemann played, I think, a couple of unnecessary moves, especially the h4 move was really unnecessary. You're just attacking, but you actually are just weakening the pawn structure. He kept the bishop on dark squares. He locked basically his bishop also with the move g3. So Wesley so used this moment. Played, I think, also brilliant endgame stage. Very wild game it was. So far Wesley so is now in the lead of the Superman, and as we said in the beginning, has now good chances maybe to win the Sinquefield Cup for this second time in his life. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. Interesting ideas of the Petrov defense for sure. If you want to see more of this tournament, check out my coverage so far with some other games that we have covered. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.